order. And has the meeting been properly posted and the roll been taken?
Yes.
Thank you. Item number 2 is the approval of the minutes. 2.1 minutes from the August 30th, 2020 meeting. If there's no additions or corrections, I'd go ahead and entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item 3 is communications. Communications at this time. So we'll move on to item number 4, which is business. 4.1 is consider a revised 5-lot certified survey map CSM and division request of the currently unplatted Lake Lawn Resort property at 2400 East Geneva Street.
Mr. Mayor, the applicant is here in the audience. This proposed land division also came before the Planning Commission back in January and was recommended for approval to the council. There was some issues with a secondary landowner out here, the Delavan Sanitary District. The petitioner, that's the CSM that's in front of you, exempts out an area of the property that would leave it as not part of this proposed plat to avoid that conflict with the sanitary district lift station property. If you have any questions, the applicant is here in the audience as well.
Thanks, Mark. Any questions?
So does that mean that the lift station is just an island of its own?
That would be correct. It would remain as an unplatted piece of property at this time.
Any other questions? Seeing and hearing none, what is the commission's pleasure?
Make a motion as stated.
There's a motion to recommend the common council approval of the 5-lot CSM land division request as prepared by John Packy, identified as job order number 1257.00 dated July 23rd, 2021. There was a motion. Is there a second?
Yeah, I made a second. I'm sorry.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Is there any plans for acquiring a lift station, or is that something that's being considered at a later date?
Dave Secures from Lake Lawn. At this point, there's been no particular discussions about acquiring that lift station. Right now, we just want to try to move forward with the development. We need to carve this out until we can resolve the particular issues with the lake site.
Big fan of moving forward and not getting stuck.
Thanks, Dave. There's no further discussion. There was a motion again and a second. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item number 4.2 is consider a single lot land redivision request by certified survey map CSM to combine the 2 tax parcels of 737 Alder Avenue.
In your agenda packet is a proposed CSM for this to combine the 2. Typically, this is a residential house and a vacant lot behind it or next to it. Typically, these could be handled as a lot line adjustment. However, because the vacant lot is in a separate subdivision than his house, the only way to combine these 2 tax parcels is with a certified survey map. And that is what is in front of you. So this would create 1 parcel that would be a house and a large backyard.
Thanks, Mark. Any questions for Mark?
That lot's a buildable lot.
It currently is. If he combines these into one single lot, he would have to come back to a get another certified survey to split it back into a separate.
Would that be easy? Just as easy as this process then, so.
Exact same process in reverse.
Any other questions? Comments?
Does that take that parcel out of the other subdivision then?
It actually takes out both subdivisions and puts it in its own certified survey map. It's a strange name, but it's a minor subdivision by state law.
Any other questions, comments? If none, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to recommend common council to approve the proposed single lot land redivision request by certified survey map CSM to combine two tax parcels of 737 Alder Avenue, subject to inclusion of the proper radius right of way dedication at Terrell and Park Junction.
Second, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item 4.3 is consider a request for a 5-unit land redivision by condominium plat for the property at 2113 through 2141 East Geneva Street, commonly known as PetSmart, through the former Staples. Mark?
As you mentioned, as the agenda item, this is the shopping mall or strip mall out there, the former Staples to PetSmart. They are looking to be able to sell these as, I guess, individual buildings. As far as zoning standard, they would not be able to do these as individual standing lots because they wouldn't meet the side yard setbacks. What they're proposing to do is a condominium, which then each they have a shared parking lot. So it does not, it still meets the zoning standards as a condominium. Then they would be able to sell the individual business units as part of this condominium. The city attorney has looked at these and had some language recommendation regarding the city's right to be able to access the stormwater management area in the back in case the property owners or condo association fail to maintain that stormwater basin.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I noticed on page 4, it says it's going from a present zoning classification of commercial, present use of retail down to residential condominiums.
I'm assuming that's a typo.
Okay, that's why I'm asking is, I mean, it says residential. So is that supposed to be then commercial condominiums?
They're commercial
Okay.
condominiums, yes.
Good motion. Any other questions, comments? Seeing and hearing none, entertain a motion.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve the way it's written, with the amendment here of change, making sure that word is changed to commercial in page 4. Addition.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item 4.4 is consider petition for direct annexation of lot 4 within Delview subdivision located at 3471 County Bow South in the town of Delavan.
Mr. Mayor, you've got a petition before you for a single property annexation down on South Second Street. I believe the petitioners are here if you have any questions. It is adjacent to the city limits. And it would be required to be, if annexed, it would be required to be hooked up to city water and city sewer.
Anyone on the commission have questions, either from Mark or the petitioner?
Does that fall within the bounds of the expansion for the plan, city plan?
City master.
Master plan.
You're referring to the comprehensive plan?
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Hearing no questions, I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion as written.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Welcome to the city.
We gotta vote. Hearing no more discussion, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Welcome to the city. Item 4.5 is considered a lot 24, or considered 24 lot preliminary plat request for an extension of Harbor Ridge Drive.
In your packet, you've got a proposed 24 lot, single family residential subdivision plat, which would be the extension of Arbor Ridge Drive, the Lake Meadows subdivision. The petitioner, proposed purchaser of this property is here. If you have any specific questions, staff, the city engineer, city planner have all looked at this. We've had some recommendations, one of which is the parkland dedication along the lake shore, and then access, trailhead access off of what would be the extension of the road to connect to that northern end of the trail. The Lake Combs Rehab District has also expressed an interest in reviewing this as far as stormwater runoff and water quality to the lake. Other than that, if you've got questions for the petitioners, if they are here.
Any questions? Questions? Staff or the petition? Seeing, hearing none. I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to recommend the 24 lot preliminary plat request for an extension of Harbor Ridge Drive, subject to tree preservation exhibit, public sanitary sewer and water utilities, stormwater drainage and runoff filtration, public sidewalk on an easement along the south side of the roadway, streetlights, and streetlights.
Street trees.
Sorry, street trees. Sorry, thank you.
There's a motion, is there a second?
I'll make a second.
There's a motion and a second, any further discussion? Discussion. If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item number 5 is under public hearings, review and possible recommendation. William Nowak, at this time, under 5.1 is a public hearing on a request to consider a conditional use petition to allow for indoor commercial entertainment land use with a minor outdoor entertainment land use for group dog training at 1333 Racine Street, located in the business local BL zoning district with a wellhead protection overlay. Again, applicant William Nowak. I at this time would go ahead and open the public hearing and start off our discussion on this particular item. Team.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, this is at 1333 Racine Street. Our applicant is here tonight, so he might be able to answer some of the questions that you have. I know this might be a little bit of a hot topic tonight, because I know we do have some people that might want to speak against this, but I'd let our applicant answer any questions that you might have, unless you have anything specific for me right away.
I just have one. Looking at the map here, you have a dark brighter red. Are they gonna stay within that area, or are they gonna go in the 2 lots behind also?
So I believe that he's looking at doing something in the lots behind that. I'm not sure if it's both of them or one of them. Oh, okay, maybe I could be wrong. I'd have
Okay,
to-
just neither
I
are
can let
gonna
the
stay
applicants
in the
speak.
building area? Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm gonna let them talk on it, because they'd be on the issue question.
Okay.
Thank you. Guys wanna tell us a little bit about?
Yeah, so right off the bat, we actually run a professional indoor and public training, dog training company. So what we do is we base in-home and public, you can utilize and like real life distractions, real life environments for training. What we've been doing for probably about 6 years now is working a lot with like rescues, rescue situations. So like I'd say 80% of our pack is rescues. So kind of what we're trying to do is what we learned, put it into a nutshell and kind of, I think the easier way to describe it is I think we can help in a greater aspect, starting with the building, to an educational standpoint as well as a training standpoint. So I think one of the biggest issues I think is, dogs are being safe left and right, yes, but they're being quote unquote hoarded, either going to fosters or going to buildings that are just can't handle, whether it be training, behavior, so on. It's kind of where we step in. So we either go between a training process of saving a dog for one day of training or going through a whole year of training. So I think the idea of that aspect is being able to take a dog in, as little as a week to a couple of weeks, train the behaviors out of them, then adopt them out. It doesn't stop there. It's kind of just where the dog situation is. But as far as educating, we want to go as far as handling, we want to train vets, groomers, anyone who's willing to learn. I mean, I feel like the better we can get the community in, the better everyone's kind of involved and knows what's going on.
Yeah, and then like for the winter time, we want a building where we can train inside, because you know how cold it gets in the winter time. So that was a struggle for us too. So it'd be nice to have like a building that we can actually do training inside too. So that is the other main,
It helps.
yeah. Mhm.
I have some
Yeah,
questions.
absolutely.
How many dogs, it probably says it in the packet, but.
Oh, no,
I wonder
No,
if it's in
on
this
a realistic
direction.
note, with what we're doing, on a realistic note, I feel like we can handle 5, no problem.
Yeah.
And I mean 5 like 150-pound dogs, which probably won't happen all the time.
Do you want to explain, like, so we pretty much would take a dog in that needs to be rescued, and we would train them in about like 2 weeks and then rehome them to someone. If that helps.
So basically every dog is a
So
plan.
we want to be 40 dogs, we would only have 3 to 5 dogs for like 2 weeks, and then we would, switch, get those dogs out if we can, and then have 3 to 5 more dogs.
But
Does that make
yeah,
sense?
So where would they be housed?
So we have about, I measured it roughly about 500 square feet. It's like a bricked in kind of back room that I just fully painted, sealed, all that good stuff. It's about 500 square feet of just dogs overnight. So it's fully brick. I went there and screamed myself, just kind of hear the sound barrier. It's silent.
And we have the garage next to it too, so.
Yeah, that helps,
And
but
then that's the cleaning company right next to it, and we've talked to
Yeah.
them, we haven't talked to the salon yet, then, so we haven't really.
Yeah,
but-
yeah, it's about 500 square feet. That's why I feel like, on the aspect of like 5 dogs, I feel like not pushing that would be safe,
Yeah.
respectful and doable.
Yeah,
So
and we
where do
only
you-
live like a mile from the building, so that
Okay.
helps.
So where do you plan on training them outside?
Honestly, we do a lot of traveling. So like we still do
Yeah.
our home training. So like we love to bring the dogs for
Yeah.
training, if not bring them to parks and so on and so on. So like
Yeah.
really it'd just be going outside using
We
like.
wouldn't be training
bathroom.
at the building outside at all.
Yeah.
We do in-home private training,
Okay.
and then
Yeah,
like in
absolutely.
the winter time, we want to use that building too for training.
Okay, and do you guys have certifications or anything?
Not specifically for training, no. I've been self-taught with quote unquote master trainers that I've learned more of what not to do. That's kind of why I started Pack Life probably about 4 years ago now, 2017.
Okay.
We've been in now from here to Florida to Tennessee, kind of just been finding our niche.
Pretty well known for like Geneva, a lot of people follow us.
And
so.
respectfully.
Yeah.
And you guys have been doing this since 2017?
I've been trained professionally for about 6 years now. But yeah, so I started Pack Life about 2017. Yeah, and my biggest reason is too many misleading either tips or quotes, or this is the magic trick that does this. And always goes backwards. Just kind of wanted to step in and do my thing. Also cut off a base training to that point too.
So I have a little bit of understanding about what it takes to rehabilitate a dog. Our trainer for our dogs didn't teach the dogs things, they taught the owners. And that's something that's key for me. How do the owners understand what it is that they need to do for these rescue animals? Because that's really, really important. Sending that out into the community for an animal, all the good work that you could do to rehabilitate a dog could be undone in seconds.
Yeah,
And then-
absolutely.
And that's how we.
Yeah,
train.
so even just to
Yeah.
break down how we already do it, it is like we basically, within as soon as we arrive, we build a relationship. What we do is we train the dog right in front of the owner, and then we absolutely show them what's going on. Actually, what we
They're
do.
involved in the
I got it,
process.
I got it. Well, what we do is basically run through the motions first. We show them the hand signals, how to actually hold the leash before they get onto it. And then we show them, we go through the motions of their own dog with them. So we not only kind of take the fight and force out of it, we get the dog kind of balanced out, and then we fully kind of transition everything to the owners, and then we don't leave until everyone's comfortable kind of thing. But especially with the rescues, our biggest thing is again, not only just training them, it's involving families through the process. You know, we love the fact that we have a huge community of rescue, just people and families in general, but the idea is, you know, a lot of dogs are nervous with people being abused and whatever it be. So if we can get families that come in during the training process, the transition is kind of like, you know, it's like handover kind of thing versus, oh, here's a new home, good luck. You know, it's our biggest thing is every dog is going to be fully trained, but goes with training. We get to go to the home, we get to, you know, re-highlight things after 24 hours, 48 hours. I get the balance of there, but that's the biggest part of transitioning. Like we used to do board and trains too, and I kind of stopped because that was the hardest part is this transitioning over. My dogs still keep that trained, I don't have to communicate. That's, you know, the biggest part of actually, you know, educating through the building as well, not just with the rescues. But yeah.
What is your primary source of dogs coming in that would need to be rehabilitated?
As far as like breeds or
And no, where are they coming from?
where they, honestly, all over, like, we're not trying to go too far out of the realm, but there's enough here that we help.
I mean, there's people that just wanna get rid of their dogs, they don't have time
Yeah.
for it, stuff like that, or people wanna euthanize their dog over something.
We've got quite a little list already.
Yeah.
We've been able to save dogs in the past, I
We
mean,
definitely
obviously years.
wanna help in that type of way. you
So
know.
is this in a collaboration with surrounding vets or other facilities
yeah,
or
so-
residents?
Absolutely. So not only just residents, we do have other rescues that we coordinate with from here to Florida that we love to coordinate with. But our biggest thing next is obviously moving forward from here is getting the vets involved. We're not looking for handouts, of course, too, but we want to be able to go to any vet and say, hey, you know, we're here with Pet Life. They know us, boom, dog goes in. I understand the regulations too for Wisconsin as far as every dog comes in, gets fully vetted, all that good stuff too. So it's, we obviously want to keep it 100% safe, but
Just like any rescue, you gotta make sure they're vetted or.
But just
can't
at that
really
point,
get
yeah.
rid of them.
Any other questions?
I had one, but it escaped.
Oh, did it?
I
Maybe
got one
you
other-
think about it, maybe we'll come back to it, because.
I got one other comment about the outside. Like, it's like we don't plan on having any dogs stay, like every dog is
Outside,
staying
no.
inside overnight locked up. Just so that's 100% clear.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want
Like
any
they
dogs
don't
staying
like
outside.
build like, you know
Yeah.
how some rescues have like the,
Outdoor kennels and stuff.
outdoor kennels. We,
No tie-ups. I mean, we don't plan, we're out there
Yeah.
with dogs, basically go Friday, come back in, train, and we basically leave.
Yep.
So hypothetically,
Please.
I don't like throwing these out there, but
That's,
with the dogs that you're staying over there, if you do find out from neighbors, from complaints that they can hear the dogs overnight and whatnot, are there ways that you would be able to rectify that, and would you be willing to do that?
oh, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I've been board trained for a few years. I kind of already do that with apartments that we've lived in.
yeah.
But we already have cameras set up in there. So we're like, I don't even think we're half a mile away. So we have cameras. I'm gonna actually put audio through it. But our biggest thing is we don't leave until a dog's kind of comfortable, as default as that sounds, but that's our biggest thing is when we leave, we make sure the dog's down, it's comfortable. Of course, dogs can bark in the middle of the night, but as soon as we hear it, my biggest thing is going, oh, they're not letting it bark 6 hours out of the night, respectively, of course, but
Yeah.
that's one of our biggest things. That's kind of part of training too. You know, why are they barking? Goes back to that.
And it's
Yeah.
nice, because we live close, so we could check out during the night if we do have a dog that has anxiety
Yeah.
or something like that, but that's, you know,
I scream tested. I should have recorded it, but it's decent for what it is. I'll break luckily.
yeah.
Is it just you two, or are you gonna have other employees?
Yeah, so it's just us predominantly, but I have my father, my brother, and some help along that way there, but we're not afraid to get employees involved, especially when it goes on the road.
I do have one other question.
Sure.
In terms of the dog's care, are you vets or are you outsourcing any veterinarian needs?
Outsourcing.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, sir.
outsourcing,
Yeah.
Like the Delavan, that,
Yeah, we have a couple of vets in mind, yeah.
yeah,
Delavan.
Elkhorn, they
Yes,
know.
sir.
about
Locally.
us. Yep.
The last kind of conversation or question that you answered was one, and as Mark said, I'm sure we've got some people that, you know, may have other concerns or questions that we've got to hear from, but that was one of them, was the overnight.
Yeah.
Was there any consideration that maybe if there was either one complaints or even without getting to that,
Oh, yeah.
whether it's barking overnight, was there any consideration for, you know, operating hours during the day and not the overnight portion of it?
Yes and no. I mean, if we couldn't do the overnight at the rescue, it would kind of be I'd say a hit and miss on that one.
Yeah.
My biggest goal and passion is the whole rescue side of it. I mean, this is kind of like a starting point in a good way. But yeah, I mean, respectively, I mean, yeah, we do a lot more good damage using rescue out of it, but because we don't have necessarily a place. We're still renting a house. We were in a rent to own, but we kind of got out of it, renting it for another 6 months. But after that, I mean, we're trying to live on property to that point. in the long
Yeah,
run.
that's our goal. is to
Yeah.
Live on property.
And-
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and then the other question I had is, I heard, when you were describing this, that you thought you could maybe take on anywhere between 3 to 5. Do you have any reservations that if it came to that this planning commission, or ultimately when it goes to the council, if there was any stipulation put on the max amount of dogs that you can?
We're very open. Yeah, I like to be honest right up front. I mean, like we've worked with, like I said, many rescues and kind of like old senior sanctuaries and medical situations. So like we've been able to handle way too much, but I just feel like with our training, with how our day goes, 5 is hands down no sweat. I mean, and
Yeah.
obviously working, but
Yeah.
it's easier to that point of what we do. Yeah, but yeah, we're very open to that point.
So, Mr. Mayor, so is that something that we potentially could put a limit on and then see how it goes and then raise it up, they could come back, correct?
Okay, that's better worded. I like that.
That's kind of where I'm going with that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I think we have your guys' names and address in the record, and if you want to, we'll allow anyone else at this time.
I do have.
Oh, do you have another question?
You mentioned that potentially there might be some overnight stays. Do you plan on having extended overnight stays? Does this need to be transitioned into something else zoning wise to accommodate that?
As far as like a dog staying for weeks or?
No,
Us, thank you.
I mean, no, I mean, I wouldn't be afraid to throw a cot down if need be, but no, I don't plan on
No,
staying there, but no, like we
yeah.
live close enough where I could
We
walk.
live
Like,
really
it's,
close,
yeah.
so we can go check on them.
Yeah,
and-
that's a good question
yeah.
though. No, I don't
It'd
plan.
be
on living
different
there.
if we live like 40 minutes or
Oh,
something.
yeah, but no. It's kind of like lights out, shut the door, cameras on.
Yep.
Okay. Yes, sir.
At this time, if there's any citizens that would like to speak on this topic, again, I just have you come up to the podium and just state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Judy Mueller. I live at 517 Sugar Creek Road, and what they're proposing is right up against my backyard. First of all, I want to tell them that I do commend them for what they're trying to do. I think it's an awesome business that you're talking about starting, and I 100% support what you want to do, just not in my backyard. I have real concerns over, if this business continues to grow, you are in my backyard. And also they talk about the dogs barking at night, and they can get there within a, brief period of time. But in the meantime, I'm woke up. And I think that for a business like this, as commendable as it is, it's better served away from a residential area. And I think you all have a copy of the petition. We had 19 signatures of residents in the neighborhood that we have very strong concerns of this going in. And if they're real successful, which would be great, and I wish them a lot of success, this is going to grow. And as much as they say, even if you talk about putting a limit on it, I can't believe they're not going to be using the lots right in the back, right connected to them, for the dogs to relieve themselves, which they should, and for outdoor training. And that disrupts us. So that's what I wanted to say about this. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Okay, can I add to that? We do have permission to hold that whole back lot. Yes, sir. If you mind to speak one more time, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
We do have permission by the actual landowner to use that back lot just for potty break, stuff like that, but I definitely understand the concern, but I just wanted to make that one clear. Appreciate it.
Any other citizens wishing to speak on this issue at this time? Either for or against?
Yeah, I'm Joanne Lockwood, and I live at 533, which those two back lots are exactly behind mine. My concern is the barking. We already have dogs in the neighborhood now. I'm about ready to call the cops on it. I haven't. So it's a real concern. And like any of you, I guess I would ask the question to you, would all of you be okay with it right in your backyard? That would be my concern. They say 5 dogs, but I agree with Judy. If you're up in the middle of the night with dogs barking, you are awake. And that is very, very upsetting, and things just escalate at that point. So I would recommend it not being in a residential neighborhood.
Why would you hear the dogs? They're going to be inside.
Well, actually, we're gonna not just make comments from the seats. You're more than welcome to come up and state your name and address for the record. Again, whether you're in favor or against it, I think that's how we're gonna go about this to keep things orderly.
Can I
Yeah.
just get a clarification real quick? I just want everybody to be clear real quick that yes, your area is zoned residential, but their area is actually zoned light manufacturing. So technically it does fall within that zoning ordinance. So they're not requesting to put it in a residential neighborhood. They're requesting to put it next to a residential neighborhood. There's a little bit of a difference. And I just wanted to make sure everybody knew where all of this is coming from so we can look at this the same way. It doesn't mean that your guys' concerns aren't important to us. You know, we want to hear them. It's just, I want everybody to know that.
Can I add something quick to that? In terms of barking dogs, again, this isn't about this particular issue. I am a dog owner. And I said before, the owners are the ones that are responsible for their animals. If you have barking dogs in your neighborhood, no matter what, call the police, let them know. It's the owner's responsibilities to manage those dogs. And dogs don't have the rights. People in the city, the citizens of the city do. Okay. And the owners have to take full responsibility for their animals, no matter what. That should go without saying when you take on the responsibility of taking on an animal. Any animal.
My name is Oscar Mueller, and I live at 517 Sugar Creek Road. And I've lived there for 46 years, and throughout all the years, we haven't had any noise problems. For the last 2 years, we've had to look at U-Haul trailers and vans. At one time, after Clovis Bolton sold the place, they tried to put boats in there, and I talked to the building inspector, and that got stopped. It's always been a real quiet area. To put dogs in is not the thing. That's something that should be away from a residential area. If you go to most towns and cities, a lot of the veterinary and kennels are away from residential areas. So at this point, I'd like to see them maybe move to the industrial park, which we have plenty of space out there to rent, as opposed to being up against our property.
Any other citizens? Yeah.
Just one more thing. Just because we are doing 3 to 5 dogs, it's just like if you had 3 dogs in your house, you know, we would control the dogs. It's not like we're hoarding dogs like a shelter. So I just want that to be out there. So people understand that it's not like we're gonna have a bunch of dogs and they're gonna be in a room at night that's quiet. So if they do bark, I don't think it's gonna be a problem. I don't think they're gonna hear it from where they're living. And if you had dogs in your house and they were barking, I just, it's kind of have to compare it to like other, if people had dogs in their house and they're not barking. Like if you had 3 dogs, some people have more than like 5 dogs. So I'm just saying, it's not like we're gonna be having like over 25 dogs. So if that helps kind of explain a little bit better. And I make one more comment.
Sure.
I just want to ask the petitioner really quick before you sit down.
But
Before you sit down.
Wait, a quick follow-up question.
That building, the 1333 Racine Street, if I'm not mistaken, that's broken up. There's multiple businesses in there. Which part of that building would you be going into?
We're going in, like where the RV mart was, you know, we have like most of the building. We have the garage too. The salon's at way at the end, and then it's the cleaning. And then we have the garage, and then, like, there's a little area where we're gonna have the dogs, and then there's where all the windows are, that's just like the training part.
The old smoke shop you're gonna
Yeah.
be there. Okay.
And
So
there's 2 doors shut where the dogs are gonna be staying at night, so it's definitely gonna be quiet. It's not gonna be like they're in the window area, so people can look in and like, oh, there's dogs in there. It's not gonna be like that.
So you're gonna be way in the front of the building where the smoke shop was. was.
Yeah,
So the closest to Racine Street would, right, so,
yeah,
okay, so if we're looking at the map here. You're way up here. Right, this is Racine Street, this is Anchor End.
yes,
You're in the front part,
the front.
not,
part.
not where they park the RV or the U-Hauls or
No.
nothing.
We actually have the first half, so we have that first
Yeah.
front section where the smoke shop U-Haul used to be, and then there's like a section that's, there's no garage door anymore, but it's like an old garage, and then the one over that's another garage, we have that whole three
Yeah.
sections basically, that first part. So
And we
like
do
half
have
the
a
building.
picture of where the dogs are gonna be at that house and show like where they're gonna be placed. And
Have use for the lot.
As
Is
far
that
as
part of it? Is
Oh,
that
the
part
lot
of
in
the
the
agreement?
back?
Yeah.
Oh.
Is
the
that part of
the
the
RV
agreement?
lot, the RV lot's not, like the
So
guy
you won't
before.
be using where the U-Hauls were.
No,
You're
no,
not using
that's-
that
that's
lot,
already-
Any of the lots at all.
No, as far as parking spaces, no, that's just parking spaces, the
then-
rest that's the U-Haul
So where are the dogs gonna feed themselves?
in the yard.
But that's the yard.
There's a yard, yes, ma'am, that acreage in the back, we have permission from the landowner as well.
That's what I was talking
Yeah, yes, ma'am,
about.
yeah.
I just wanted to make sure
So
we
we're
all
not gonna
understood.
Oh, yeah, we
We're
go
not gonna
anywhere
be
from
training
the,
back there. Okay, we're just gonna be, for that part
I mean, if
is
it's
where
a
they're
big deal,
gonna
we
go
won't
to the
train back there.
bathroom, but we're not doing training back there. Alright,
I have just some of the discussion just kind of raised, so maybe you could speak to why you chose maybe this location as opposed to maybe look at other locations, what was ideal about this versus maybe any thoughts on that?
My biggest part is the pandemic, we were looking to buy land and literally live on the land, get dogs in and out and out. Our biggest part was we moved to Delavan, honestly, we didn't think we'd move to Delavan, and that was a bad area, but we moved here and it's been quiet, it's been great to us. And I feel like instead of going elsewhere, we have such a strong community and especially families that we've trained and haven't trained. That I just think it's one of the best in the area. As far as being closer to residential area, yeah. But I think it's better to be closer and more convenient to that point. As far as being respectable, of course, but you know, instead of being off the beaten path. And to that point, but
Yeah.
that was my biggest thing, is we definitely wanted to build elsewhere outside of land, that way we can use the land on it, not other people, of course.
Yeah.
And if only good deal and talking landowners.
the setup of it, it's hard to find a place that there's landlords that will accept dogs, so when you find something, you wanna take it. To be honest, we did have the building in Whitewater, and we
It's
started
different,
that.
it's different, so.
Yeah, and our landlord kind of lied to us about some things, and the basement flooded, so we had to kind of leave that one, because you can't really have dogs there if it's, you know, the mold and all that. So, I mean, I think this building's perfect. It's good to find a landlord that, you know, is passionate about our business and sees that we're great people at what we do and we want to help.
And I think I said it once or twice too, but if you don't mind me highlighting, the building's actually a lot like brick, like old school brick, so it's fairly quiet, but I mean, we'd be open to anyone going in there and checking it out too, obviously, we're very open to the public.
Yeah.
But just checking out sound testing, anything we need to do, we're very open to that point. Just want every opportunity we can.
And I mean, there's still, regardless of what this commission decides on this issue, there's time between now and the city council hearing this, if it gets to that point. So, I mean, maybe that would be a pretty good neighborly thing to do, to invite anyone here and have them take you up on your offer to learn more.
Absolutely, I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
and then the other thing about our building too, like, we're not gonna be open to the public. We're only gonna be open.
Oh,
like-
certain hours, yeah.
Yeah, like, we're certain hours, like how some restaurants are only open certain hours, so it kind of, you know, avoids a lot of traffic.
Oh, yeah, that's true, I guess. Yeah, and then I guess at that point too, if and when we do group training, it'll be regulated to, you know, whatever night, 2 nights a week. So yeah, it's not an everyday traffic thing. That's-
Especially with COVID, we're trying to be very limited on how many people are in the training facility too, if that helps.
Judy, did you have
I
something
just
else you
see
wanted
that.
to add?
First of all, I appreciate the open communication, because if this does go in, I think it's gonna be imperative that we keep dialogue going,
Oh,
so
we're-
that if
yeah.
there's any issues, I don't want you to look at us as the enemy.
Oh,
We're just
No,
concerned.
you've lived there
We're
longer than
just
we've rented,
concerned.
so.
We're just concerned. My concern would be, you know, you talk about the dogs being challenging dogs, rescue dogs, which sometimes, you know, they've been through a lot, so they're gonna be a little
There'll be some
unruly.
wandering
Yeah,
dogs.
so, you know, when you're talking about, well, you know, if you have 3 dogs next door, yes, that's a good point, and I would agree with you, providing we're talking 3 dogs next door, providing we're not seeing your business grow. to be 5 dogs, 10 dogs, 15 dogs.
Oh, that's where we definitely look to
You know,
limit to that point.
and
We
that
just-
would be our concern.
And
So
we
I think,
definitely don't wanna go over 5 dogs.
I respectfully love the concern, because that's honestly what we've seen this the past 10 years, but let alone 1 year. It's like even rescues and fosters have 1,000 dogs in the
yeah,
house.
I
That's
still
what-
prefer to see you go somewhere else.
I
I'm going
I got
to
you.
pray that somebody donates a place for you. That's wonderful, so if you know anybody. But I think as long as we keep the dialogue open and keep, you know, all try to get along together. But I would ask that this group really take a look at this. I understand this is not its own like manufacturing, I get that, but it's still, I think people need to take into account that there are people that may be impacted by this negatively, especially, you know, we're getting older. We like to spend a lot of time out in the backyard. I really don't want to have the dogs in the back if they're unruly. Thank you.
Anyone else at this time wish to?
Can I just say a couple of things?
Come on, state your name.
My name is Becky.
Yeah, if you could come up to the
Oh,
podium.
sure.
We're recording.
And my husband and I bought the property a few years ago, and we have really clean house. The only person that's left there is Christy at the beauty salon from the original. And we've done a lot of screening on people, and we really make sure that this is a good thing for us as well, as you, the neighbors, and for the people that are renting it. So I was over there today, and I can't believe what they've done to this, to the place. I mean, I think the tobacco shop was a problem. They were broken into at least twice that I know of. And it just was sort of an issue. So we were not unhappy to see them go. I think these young people have such a commitment and are very dedicated to what they're doing, and we wouldn't allow them to have more than 5 dogs. Even if they wanted 10, it's just not gonna happen. We own the place, so we can tell them what they can have and what they can't, basically. And there's nothing, you're absolutely right, there's nothing worse than a barking dog, especially in the middle of the night. I don't like it during the day. So if it ever was an issue, it would be addressed immediately. I can assure you of that. As long as we know about it. Now, there were some things that went on over at Racine Street, not at the tobacco shop, but the middle area, that we depend on Christy at the beauty salon to inform us of some things. We don't live over there. We can't be there 24/7. So we take the things very seriously, the complaints, and then we take action. So, like I said, we've cleaned house. Christy's the only one left, so we have 2. And the middle area is a cleaning business now. Yeah. And they're equally, as they have just cleaned the place out, so. I think, like you said, as long as there's communication, as long as we know what's going on, as well as Billy and Haley, then we can address it. And I agree with you completely. And our understanding when we first talked to them, or have talked to them recently even, is that there's not going to be a lot of overnight stay. That's not, they go up into people's homes and like, we'll probably have you come into ours, but they do a lot of private training also. It's not just, it's not just rehoming dogs or dogs that have been abandoned. No. A lot of
We do have a website, so if you guys want to look on our website to see a little more, learn a little bit more about our training business. We also have a Facebook too. That helps you learn a little bit more about what we do.
So, and this is, I'm just.
If we could just try to have the communication, we are filming for those trying to view and interested in it, so we've gotten a little lax. Thank you for your comments. I think if you're done, if there's anyone else that wishes to speak, then surely, yep.
So the only thing is, like I said, would they be willing to give us your name and number? I would hate to have to call the cops. If the dog started barking.
I-
You
I-
call, or
we-
call
I would
us,
give
you
you my
call,
personal
yeah.
cell phone, yeah, like I said, we're 100%.
Now, where do you live?
Yeah, we're right off at the, like Fifth Street, Wisconsin Street, so we're not too far from there.
And we live over on Schmidt Road. I'd gladly give you my husband's number, my number. And I think if there was an issue sometime at night, call us both, call all of us. Absolutely. Because we can't do anything unless we know about it.
Well, I guess the reason I'm saying that is because we do, not mentioning names, have neighbors that dogs that bark and bark and bark. You say something to them. And years ago, we had a neighbor worked for the city. I went to him and I said, your dogs bark from the time you leave till you get home. His response was, they're not my dogs, they're my wife's dogs. So that's what we've lived through. So you can definitely see how we feel about it. We have dogs now that bark all day long. But you can't call the cops.
I think that was addressed earlier in the sense that if there is that going on in the neighborhood, then you need to let the police department know. And so we kind of
Yeah,
check
because
that
that's not good for
Absolutely.
dogs at all either.
Right, well, exactly. So, okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you, and thanks for all the good communication and comments.
So we actually have Jackie here tonight from Manuel. I think you guys have met her on Zoom, but never in person. She's our city planner,
Okay,
to take over from Mike Slavny. So I'm gonna have her come up and she can maybe clarify a little bit when it comes to the overnight staying of the dogs. Jackie.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to see you in person. So I'm just going to highlight a few points from my staff memo that was in your meeting packet. Basically, just wanted to clarify a few points. So yes, this is zone manufacturing light, so it is in a multifamily manufacturing district. There are a couple different zoning districts in this area, so it does tend to complicate things. And in areas like this, we try to pay special attention to impacts from different types of uses, since a lot of different things could be conceivably allowed in this part of town. So one point I wanted to make off the bat was that the zoning ordinance does have a specific land use called commercial animal boarding. And that is a commercial land use intended for operations where the primary business is boarding animals for periods of long periods of time. That is a land use that is not actually permitted in this zoning district. And so in order for this land use to be approved, my recommendation is just for us to be pretty tight on the amount of overnight stays that are associated with this use. So from what I've heard so far, it sounds like they should have no problem with this, but I just wanted to make that point up front that if this evolves or morphs into a commercial animal boarding operation, it would not be allowed in the zoning district. So it's not that they need to amend their conditional use, it's actually not allowed at all. So my recommendation in my staff report is that overnight stays directly related to dogs they are actively training, in my opinion, should be fine. But if they start boarding dogs that they're not training, or somehow starts changing the nature of the business to a boarding operation, that would be grounds to have the conditional use permit revoked or other zoning enforcement action taken.
and thank you for clarifying some of that. I think I may have brought this up, and there was some discussion prior to when you maybe got here, but also just asking if there was any objection on part of the petitioner to limit and cap the number of dogs. And there didn't seem like there was, and I think that would be an important thing to include as part of the conditions, no more than 5. I don't know how the rest of the committee feels about that. We did have some discussion.
Great. So if it's all right with the plan commission, what I'd like to do is read through my recommended conditions of approval, and then with the note that we would add a cap of 5 dogs at any given time. And then perhaps if you're comfortable with those and just want to move ahead with those, that'd be great. Or if you want to add additional conditions, you can do that, or remove conditions, you can also do that. So the first one, this was kind of in response to the concerns that folks had about, or we anticipated folks would have concerns about outdoor activities related to dog training. And so the first condition of approval would be that permanent exercise areas, agility training courses, and other permanent outdoor training areas shall not be permitted. Number 2, outdoor activities shall be limited to 60 minutes of training per dog per day. I will be honest, I kind of took a guess on this. I didn't really understand what their nature of their operation would be. So now that we know more, and if plan commissioners want to adjust that one way or the other, I certainly would be open to that.
Can you reread that to me?
Yeah,
It's on the page.
Because yeah.
I'm happy to read it. Audience.
Page 3.
Outdoor activities shall be limited to 60 minutes of training per dog per day. And if you desire, you could say no training allowed outdoors.
On the property.
On site, yep, and so this.
I just think that should be mentioned in there that it's on site, that it's limited 60 minutes, because
These are her gut reactions.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is you can't just sit there and say 60 minutes of outdoor, and that's it for a dog, when they're gonna be taking them off property to do stuff. You gotta make sure it says on property.
I agree. All right, number 3, dogs shall be handled, controlled, and or restrained so that dogs will not trespass onto other properties, run into parking or drive areas, or into the street. This next one is about the commercial animal boarding that I mentioned earlier. So it says commercial animal boarding is defined by section 23.206(4J). Not directly related to the dog training operation shall not be permitted. Number 5, when dogs are indoors, no barking shall be detectable from the property line. If needed to meet this standard, windows shall remain closed and additional soundproofing shall be added to the building. This is something we can't really test right now, but it's something that we can enforce after the fact if needed. Number 6, dog waste shall be cleaned up immediately and property shall be maintained. Number 7, special events such as shows, exhibitions, and contests shall be permitted, only shall be permitted with a temporary use permit has been secured. And then something, we're gonna add something that say maximum number of dogs to be trained on site shall be limited to 5. And that was the end of the list.
Thank you for running through those conditions and clarifying. Any other questions, comments from?
Could I ask you a question? Could you explain what a permanent exercise yard, agility training course, and other, permanent outdoor training areas, what does that constitute?
That's a good question. That language is included in the zoning ordinance for commercial animal boarding, but I would imagine it'd be any physical structure, ramps or hoops and such that would be used for dog agility training exercises. We could clarify here that that might include both permanent fixtures and removable structures, because sometimes bring a bunch of cones out, things like that. This doesn't really specify if that applies to permanent and temporary structures.
Consensus on clarification on that first point?
Actually, it does say permanent. I'm just looking at that right now. Yeah, so if that's,
So,
good with that?
but you had mentioned that there could be removable objects that aren't permanent, so maybe we want to clarify.
Yeah. Permanent or temporary.
Well, this is exercise yards, agility training courses, and other permanent outdoor training areas. So is that limiting to outdoor? Or are they restricted from doing that indoors as well? Because there's quite a few periods in there, not commas.
Oh, that must have been the scam. It's certainly intended to limit outdoor training.
Outdoor training.
Yeah.
Okay. And like I said before, you understand a lot about rehabilitation for dogs. I don't want to make this completely restrictive to the potential of actually conducting the business that they're intending. Is 60 minutes a day enough? What is?
Find the ballpark, I mean, 60 minutes is probably 3/4 of what they go by in a day. So I mean, if we're training on property and not doing off property, I imagine it would be somewhere formally anywhere between 2 and 3 hours, maybe 3 hours max. I mean, dogs don't last a long, period of day, but
That's per dog.
I mean, I would, I'd say yes and no, but I mean, usually if we have more than one dog there, we kind of try to incorporate all in one. But that's a good question too, as far as single handling group.
That's per outdoor activities.
Questions, comments, clarifications? Increase, decrease, nine.
It's really hard to say, because I know once my dogs have been trained, I don't have to spend nearly as much time with them to maintain it. This particular business venture revolves around a fast turnaround to actually get dogs housed. Sometimes you need more time, sometimes you need less time. And that's fluid based on the animal and the owners or potential owners, or what the dog has gone through in order to actually be rehabilitated. I can say that in my personal experience, our dog trainer rehabilitated a dog that was a fighting dog and was scheduled to be killed. The dog had broken teeth and was following her around in the pet store off leash, and was the sole reason we picked that particular place for training. Her ability to showcase how well this animal has come along from being put to death, and it was perfectly mannered. It never barked, it never did anything, it followed her around everywhere. She had complete control of the animal. That was my experience. That does not mean that this experience is going to be replicated or it will be anywhere else. I had a very, very positive experience with someone who did exactly what you're proposing. And the success rate for her was 100%. She had in her apartment 6 dogs at any given time. And they were so well trained that they would hold the door open while she got groceries. And that's just my experience of how well something like this can work. Well, that being said, her training for that particular animal never stopped at all. It was constantly like riddled with anxiety. It didn't like being in areas where there were lots of people. Loud noises still set it off. So her training regimen was continual, which is why I'm looking at this and thinking 60 minutes of training per dog is not something that can be limited in terms of rehabilitation for a dog. So I am not in favor of number 2 at all.
I think number 2 refers strictly to outdoor activities, so it doesn't. I mean, there could be indoor activities.
There
longer
could
than
be.
60 minutes.
I think that the main focus for the outdoor activities is to limit the amount of exposure to barking or other things like that, which would be a community nuisance. And I think that the barking and other things like that as a community nuisance should be addressed as a barking or a community nuisance factor, not necessarily a training restriction. Those are my thoughts on that.
Any other thoughts, comments? suggestions?
Yeah, if I can just add one more thing. When we have people sign their leases, it is a 6 month. We go every 6 months, we reassess what's going on and how the situation, everything's being handled. So if it's not working out, then
I'm,
well, that's okay. No,
No, you gotta go up there and talk.
Talking
gotta follow the
because I want
rules.
to tell him about the boat issue.
Oh,
Well,
no,
that's
it's
another-
okay. No, that's.
let's-
Oh, okay.
I'm retired and I spend a lot of time in my backyard. And I've got a nice deck and a place to sit and I know they're gonna have to let the dogs out to run. But they can't just let them run around the building.
Well, they won't be off leash.
Well, I don't know that.
No, okay,
And-
no.
But they have to run around, they're gonna bark. They're gonna run around, they're gonna do their job. And is that gonna be picked up right away too? I mean,
Absolutely.
because that part of town, the prevailing wind comes from the east. And that's,
Absolutely, I understand completely.
yeah,
I've lived in homes before where it's been an issue and it's very irritating. And that's why, I mean, I know what you're going through and those were questions that we presented to them before they ever signed the lease, before we let them sign the lease. So, again, that's where you guys come in if an issue crops up.
yeah, I'm not the only one that's retired, there's several
Right.
homes that the people
Right.
are
Oh,
retired.
yeah, there's nothing worse than a continuously barking dog or the scent of the dog.
Yeah, that's my
Absolutely.
concern,
Absolutely.
because for 46 years, we never had an issue. I mean, you had to look at certain things, but, you know, we've overlooked that. But now when it's come to the dogs barking and stuff,
It's your neighborhood dogs, your neighbors that are.
I have a neighbor next to me that just bought the home, and they have a dog and he never barks. And then 2 doors down, they have another dog that rarely barks. And down the road, I mean, the dog's actually in the neighborhood, it's across the street, kitty corner, that there's a barker, but the dogs are pretty good on the street. So I don't want to hear dogs bark.
I don't like it.
So, I mean, it's up to the council, whatever they decide, but if they get to be barking, I'll be down here barking.
You
So,
should, absolutely. I'm sure all of you have my number and my husband.
yeah,
Can I say one more
Yeah,
thing?
I think,
Because I think
yes,
it's-
go ahead, and then we're gonna.
Yeah,
start
I just
moving
wanna-
forward.
Because then we can sink some.
Okay, maybe you guys can continue your
Okay.
conversation. Or-
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing about, I'm saying with the dogs barking, when we bring them out, we're gonna have them on leash. They're not gonna be run the ground, they're gonna go do their business, we're gonna pick up their, their poop. Like, they're not gonna be running around barking, so I just wanted to, it's gonna be, they're gonna do their business, we're gonna bring them back into the building, and then for training outside, we're gonna bring them to parks or like downtown, like Geneva, we use for training to socialize dogs. That's how you get them out to like not be nervous around people, other dogs. So I just wanted to explain that. It's not like we're gonna have dogs running around in that acre back there barking. It's gonna be controlled.
And I mean, I heard the land or the property owners say that they'll obviously review things. I mean, it's obviously city staff is gonna review this and I don't like people barking at me either, so. That said, is there any other discussion? Clarification that needs to. Well, actually, I'm gonna close the public hearing at this point, and then Move on to item 5.2, which is considering the conditional use petition itself to allow for the indoor commercial entertainment and use with a minor outdoor entertainment land use for group dog training at 1333 Racine Street, located in business local BL zoning district with wellhead protection. Again, applicant William Novak. What is the commission's pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve the following conditional use findings below. And the conditional use request for personal professional services at the property located at 1333 Racine Street in a manufacturing light ML zoning district and wellhead protection overlay, subject to the following findings and conditions of approval listed below. With the change of number 2 to be stricken for the recommended conditions of approval, and the addition of a maximum dogs trained on site to be limited to 5 dogs at any given time.
I'm gonna second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I'm willing to give this a chance because I had a lot of really good experiences with a previous dog trainer who took this on. And I can say that this dog that I spoke of, his name is Atlas. He's died now, but she had him so well trained. He would stay in the car with the doors open. She could take him in a Corvette, in a convertible. He would sit and wait patiently for her anywhere she went, no matter what she said. And this was a dog that was a fighting dog and was scheduled to be put down. I'm an animal lover, and I love dogs and animals, which is fortuitous for you. I also don't like barking animals. My dogs are well trained and they do not bark. One of them gets a little bit agitated if there are storms. So if she happens to be outside, she gets really animated and she wants to come inside and her barking starts. I work on fixing that problem every day. So that's something that a responsible owner undertakes. I encourage you to do this, but also keep in mind the community you are in and the respect that you need to give to your fellow neighbors. That's all.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Again, any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. And again, thanks everyone. I think, keep the communications open and take the invitation that's been extended to learn more. And I'd like to learn more myself, actually, so thank you. Item number 6 is public hearing to review and possible recommendation, Wisconsin Custom Food Trucks LLC. 6.1 is a public hearing on a request to consider amending an existing youth development conditional use permit at 1830 Hobbs Drive, allowing for multi-tenant buildings to add an in-vehicle sales or service land use for a proposed food truck business and sales within the manufacturing light ML zoning district, applicant Wisconsin Custom Food Trucks LLC. At this time, I'd go ahead and open the public hearing. Discussion.
All right, yes, Mr. Maris, this is at 1830 Hobbs Drive, allowing for in-vehicle sales or service. I don't believe that our applicant is here tonight. So I don't know if I want to. I don't know his, I can't speak for him, but if you ask some general questions, that might be.
Yeah, and I think if no one has any objection, we would. I continue this to
I agree.
the next meeting, and we often wanted people to be here to answer questions. So with that, I would entertain a motion to continue the public hearing to a later date.
So moved. Specifically.
Specifically,
We'll make a
very
motion,
nice.
we'll make a motion to table this until the
November first.
November first.
November first,
Second.
with the recommendation
Second or not, I just threw it out there.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not all in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
I,
Opposed, same sign, motion passes. Moving on then to item number 7, a public hearing to review and possible recommendation for James Kyle for Kyle Holdings. 7.1 is the public hearing on a request to consider a conditional use petition to allow for outdoor storage, accessory land use for a proposed industrial manufacturing building at 2121 Hobbs Drive, located in the manufacturing general and G zoning district, again, applicant James Kyle for Kyle Holdings Millennium. This time I would open a public hearing.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, this is Millennium's proposed new building location on Hobbs Drive. They're looking at putting in. And we're here for their outdoor storage conditional use. And we do have an applicant here that can speak to that. If you have any questions.
Yeah, we have any problems with them currently, where they're currently at?
They're outgrowing it.
Have we had any problems with it since we approved their outdoor storage?
No. Yeah, they've outgrown it, so.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that they didn't have current problems where they're at, and we'll approve a bigger problem out someplace else.
I mean, the only problem I could potentially see that they were having is their area is too small. I could even tell that driving by, you know, so.
Right.
Are they going to be, are you gonna be building a whole new building and moving out there, or are you gonna be building another building and doing both?
Hi, Jason Christensen with Nielsen Manson Barber, civil engineer. The applicant's not here, but I'll speak to whatever I can here. They are moving their facility out there. They do have a buyer for that building, and they do have a date that they have to get out. So this is their new location.
They have a buyer for the new building. That's awesome. That's even better. I mean, I was worried about that. Will be taken again?
Good.
there was a quick meeting that we had to do last month. What was the committee that? Yeah. Was it last week? Well, yes, it is last month still too. And they came forward and they talked about they sold the previous land to who was looking to take over the property sometime next August, so they have a limited window of time to actually move forward, which is the reason why it came forward. Cool. So they're just trying to.
I missed the last meeting, so.
It wasn't this one.
Yeah. Whatever, I missed that meeting too.
Anything else that maybe you want to share at this time?
Any questions?
Any questions? Yes, you.
Haven't you already moved part out there? Aren't you already there? No.
No, this is a vacant parcel.
Get the building.
Because I thought there was stuff stored out there now.
So this building is actually going to be right next door to 2153 Hobbs Drive, which is the spec building that was out there. So this is going to be next door. to
Oh,
that.
okay.
Are they looking at hiring more individuals then?
Yes, they employ 31 people right now. Their plan is to, with this facility, up that potentially 45 employees.
Okay, cool.
Any other questions? Is not, I will go ahead and close the public hearing. Item 7.2 is consider a conditional use petition to allow for an outdoor storage accessory land use for a proposed industrial manufacturing building at 2121 Hobbs Drive, located in the manufacturing general MG zoning district. Applicant James Kyle for Kyle Holdings Millennium. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion as written.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I just would say that I think along with this is not only was there, and this isn't readily known, and there's still work to do to get all the final approvals, but I think it's very, not only has there been the space outgrown, and you haven't been, Millennium hadn't been here that long in Delavan since they moved here from the Lake Geneva area, and there was another municipality that was hoping to try to lure them elsewhere. And I think it says a lot to the fact that staff, myself and Brian, others stepped up, had the meetings that were necessary, and this is a great company that's growing and doing good things. And as the question was asked and pointed out that not only is it keeping here, there's going to be continued growth here and new employees. So it's a great thing all around. So thank you for the time invested to believe in the community and to stay here and not move elsewhere. So again, with that, there was a motion and a second. All those if there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. On to item number 8 is public hearing review and possible recommendation. David Zimmerman, 8.1 is a public hearing on request to consider a proposed step 4 precise implementation plan for a portion of the property located at 2400 East Geneva Street in the manufacturing light ML zoning district to allow for an outdoor patio structure. Applicant David Zimmerman. At this time, I would go ahead and open the public hearing. Have discussion.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, this is an outdoor patio that they're looking at putting over at Lake Lawn at 2400 East Geneva Street. We do have the applicant, Dave Securis here. He's been waiting patiently this whole time. So if we have any questions, we can direct that towards Dave.
I do actually have one question, I'm full of questions tonight. This has come before us already, correct? It did, what?
No, there was information that was filled out in the spring.
Okay.
Then our applicant or builder had some health problems that postponed us.
Okay, maybe that's what it was then. I
It was
just
never voted on.
remember something and I'm like,
It was on the agenda, but we had to.
Yeah, like 3 times.
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, a number of times.
I just remember seeing it a couple times and I was like, did something change or, okay, it makes sense.
Yeah, so I would like to add, Mayor.
Sure.
So one thing that we learned very quickly last year is with COVID, everyone's looking to be spaced out for their dining experience. So the outdoor dining in front of the lakefront has been the key. So we've added more seating outside already, just on the patio of one of our other restaurants. Problem is, you get that rain that comes in and all of a sudden, you got to move everyone inside. So this is our opportunity to put like a 4,200 square foot structure outside the Frontier, have an entrance and an exit from the corner of the current Frontier restaurant to go to this covered area. In the notes and the recommendation from the city, it talks about it being a seasonal use. I am looking to use that more on a year-round basis. There was a concern about not having enough parking, or maybe if we were to add that structure that we'd have to add 15 parking spots. The truth of the matter is most of the individuals that are going to the restaurant are already staying at the resort. They're already there in another parking spot for their stay. And if we get into some of the off season and we have a great weather day, I'd hate to just have that area closed, especially to combat COVID or whatever that might be. As we get a little bit into the off season, the golf course starts to drop down. The water activity in the marina and the water sports starts to drop. So that opens up additional parking spots right there. Plus we'd be removing a couple of tables inside the current restaurant as the access point to get to this outdoor area, which is about 20 feet from the end of the building. So those are just some of my comments I wanted to bring up as far as the need and also to address that maybe parking concern that we could address that today.
When they take in consideration your parking stalls, do they consider the whole parking lot you guys have there? Or is there a limit on where you can say you can park for a certain area?
I do not know how that's.
Do you understand what I'm asking? Because,
So I'll explain what I wrote in the memo was that because they're adding an additional 58 seats at the zoning ordinance rate, you know, how we require parking for restaurants, that would trigger 15 spaces. I personally don't know how the, you know, different parking areas on the site are apportioned to different uses across the site, and I feel that the applicant can demonstrate to the satisfaction of the plan commission that there are sufficient spaces on site to accommodate the additional seating, then this could be okay. But I was concerned that, you know, we're adding almost 60 more seats, and it's open to the public, which I understand that it could be.
yeah, and I understood that. You are gonna make this seasonal, and then like over Christmas, there is no golf. I mean, you can't then use that golfing parking lot for anything else, or you know what I'm saying? It's just, you have a lot of parking out there, so.
Yeah, the parking is used for whatever the purpose is. They're going to be, some days it's going to be heavy banquets. Other days there's no banquets, and so you have the conference center spacing open that then I would love to use for the restaurant if there's locals that come in. Or you have golfing and they're using a particular area, or water sports. So there is so much of it that overlaps. There's not designated parking for particular amenities on the property.
And then my only concern would be, I wouldn't want us to allow the 15 to not be there now, and then down the road, there's another 15, we're like, oh, okay, that does add up after a while. So that would be my only concern. Because I know you have, Lakeline has other future wishes for the property. I know they've had them before for certain things, so I'm not usually a big parking stall person, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm usually one of the council, not council, but commission members that sort of like, okay, whatever, go find parking. But this one's a little bit, I worry because I don't want something down the road to happen where you're really limited in parking. You know what I'm saying?
So if I can add to that, there's obviously days that we, as you know, we do many weddings. And so we would have locals come in to park for wedding days. There's many uses for the parking at the resort. And I do want to add, I think the number was, if there's 58 seats, it's divisible by 4, so you're looking at 15 parking spots. But I do have to remove some tables in the restaurant already to have a walk-through pass. I'm estimating that to maybe be a removal of 20 seats. So there is a little bit that needs to be taken into consideration there.
So I'm sorry, I like full questions. So I'm a little bit confused though, because you're going to be using this during your busiest season. Okay. And it's okay if it's seasonal then. But if he turns it to be year round where everything might not be used, that's when he's got to add the 15 parking spots.
That's how it's written currently, as far as the recommendation, as I understand it.
Yes.
Because to me, it would be the other way around, because you're going to use it in the summer when you're the busiest. That's when you would have to add the 15 parking spots. So maybe I should just thought everything through before I started.
That's why I brought up, I appreciate the comments.
Right, and that's why, that's why I'm talking about it. It's just, maybe I don't care.
I'd rather have a green space.
I wouldn't be able to answer questions about dogs. Think about the use of the golf course during the day. Okay, those parking spots are not used for the golf course in the evening, which then you would have people coming in for dinner in the evening. Golf course is not used at night. So the uses offset each other in the full resort operation.
I've seen it.
All right. Any other questions, comments for Dave? Sure.
I just wondered where the 15 number came from, because there are a heck of a lot of parking places all around that property.
So the city's zoning ordinance requires one space for every 4 seats. And so if you're adding 58, divide that by 4 and round up, you get 15 parking spaces. That didn't take into account removing tables on the interior, so that could be adjusted if that was the direction that the.
My question though is, how many parking places are there already?
Oh,
Why do you have to add 15? How do you know how many already exist? That was my question.
I misunderstood. I do not know how many originally exist, so the way it was worded was that the applicant would have to show us that there's adequate capacity for parking on site, since we don't.
Is there?
Yes. That's what I was attempting to demonstrate. There's the different uses at different times.
Feel that there's sufficient myself. I think there's an awful lot of blacktop out there already, and I like the green space myself, but so, yes.
There was a comment that perhaps Lakeland has future plans for other amenities, so that might be a good time to reassess the whole parking situation, and perhaps not now.
I think that makes a lot.
Great idea.
Thank you. Thank you. No, if there's no additional questions or comments, I will close the public hearing at this point, and item 8.2 is consider a proposed step 4 precise implementation plan for a portion of the property located at 2400 East Geneva Street, manufacturing light ML zoning district to allow for an outdoor patio structure. Applicant David Zimmerman. Entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to that.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Any further discussion?
Do we need to change that to where the seasonal, they can use it all year round?
Yeah, you would want to strike that condition.
Okay, good. I'll agree to that.
Okay.
I'll agree to that as a second.
All right. Any further discussion?
I'd like to make a amendment that the parking be addressed at a later date.
With that,
The parking would be addressed at a later date. That's fine.
all right. There's a motion and a second. Amended motion. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item number 9 is update on building and zoning related matters.
You guys have any specific questions for me? I can tell you that I got a new single family home permit that I came to pay for today, so I wanted that, which I think is that my computer died on me, so I think they're
4 between the last 2 years. There's 14 for this year.
Yeah. So,
I thought that's what Terry.
yeah.
Sure.
Anything new on the Shopko building?
You know, I haven't heard anything from them in a while, but I do know that there is supposed to be someone coming in there. And I think it's still on the down low, so I think who it is, so.
Or the restaurant on the corner?
The old Perkins, I haven't heard anything on that. No one's submitted anything, so.
Is the Chinese restaurant still going in next to buy Anytime Fitness?
Yes, it is. They have pulled some permits. I think COVID and everything else, they're having a hard time getting some parts, so it'll be a while before they open.
How about Myers?
I haven't heard anything on Myers, I don't know.
But
Mark
the
has not demanded it.
the old / current Millennium building, who bought that, do we know?
Is that gas? Do you know?
As I
They're on
understand,
Madison.
as I understand it, it's a automotive.
Yeah.
Like,
Engine,
they do modifications for cars and things like that. It's out of Madison, but they're trying to keep it on the down low because they don't want Madison to be in an uproar that they're.
Hey, we need a good mechanic in.
I know, I'm gonna try to find one.
All right, any other questions?
Just
One last
Yes.
question, McCarthy, with the hail issues in Delavan, all these businesses that showed up, do they all have to get approval?
So most of the, I would say all of them have called me, and because it's just gonna be a temporary, it falls under our zoning code as something that's gonna be temporary. So if it was gonna be a permanent structure or permanent place as to where they were gonna be, they would have had to come in and get a bunch of other things done, but because it's temporary, they did get, they didn't have to pay for any permits or anything, but all of them did come in and talk to me and dealing with trying to keep all the signs out of the terrace area, but yeah, most of them did come in and talk to me.
We don't have future agenda items, otherwise I maybe add that to the future agenda item to talk about. But maybe we can. Yeah. Any other questions, comments?
There's two homes on Geneva Street. I don't know the numbers right now, one on Herman and Geneva. There's a sign on the door, and then there's a White House kitty corner from there that's had a sign on the door forever. And there's broken windows now on that White House that I noticed. Is there something going on? I mean, they keep the yard up on the White House.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to look at those together. Yeah, so I believe Roxanne is the owner of that house. She's called me a few times this week, and I believe that she's looking at selling that house. I'm not sure if she has someone that's already interested in it, and I believe that the properties would allow her to get 2 lots out of that. So I think she's definitely being, we've kind of sent her letters in the past, and she's being proactive in selling that property.
For the most part, it's very clean. It's just, I noticed they're starting to get some broken windows. I don't know if kids are breaking in or what's going on. It's just hard to- Yeah, exactly. It's that automotive business.
If there's no other additional questions, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Aye.